Welcome to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Otoha.
And this time from Lagos, Nigeria, I'm Cheta Wanze.
Cheta, you're the proverbial traveler, Ajala the traveler. Here, there, everywhere.
You have to explain to our UK audience what Ajala means.
Ajala, this was a character back in the, is it 70s? I don't remember now, who was famous for going round the world on his bike. And that character, because this hadn't been done before in Nigeria, but he became an embodiment of what it means for someone to just be a traveler. So now, when, like Cheta, you can't keep your bomb in one place. People refer to you as Ajala, the traveler, and that is what Cheta has been, because for the past it's 1 month now, isn't it? You've been here, there, and everywhere.
I've been in quite a few places. I've been in Onitsha, I've been in Abuja, I've been in Accra, I've been in Lagos, I've been in Ibadan. But it's the life I signed up to.
It's a life you signed up for, man. There's if you are Igbo people say "Ana no fibe killing Mao," and what that means is to set the scene. Mao is a match period in many Igbo communities, and they don't stay in one place.
And
They're always just running around.
you say Google.
Yeah, but to be able to take in the full spectacle of this masquerade, you have to follow it. You have to anticipate where it's going next. So people then have this saying that you do not stand in one place to observe the masquerade. And if by that analogy, work is Cheta's masquerade, and by the nature of what he does, he cannot stay in one place to observe this masquerade. So Cheta, thank you for joining us today from Lagos, Nigeria.
A very rainy and under the water Lagos. I'm sure you must have seen some of the
I have seen some
apocalyptic
of
videos.
when the first time I saw that, I was like, surely this cannot be true. But hey, having worked in Parkview Estate in Ikoyi, and having seen what a little bit of rain can do to that community, I understand just how rained under you are at the moment.
Bagada was flooded. Bagada.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yes. So for those
And
who
again,
may not know,
for
Bagada,
those,
for those who may not know, Bagada is high ground. As in, it's very high ground. So for Bagada to be flooded, we're talking of Noah and the Ark kind of flooding.
well, the Bagada might be flooded, but people are not crying as much tears as some are in the UK, because some have come under the political flood, and this has resulted in the UK's Prime Minister resigning as a leader of the Labour Party, and come September, will no longer, when Parliament comes back from its recess next month, will no longer be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And this is what we want to talk about today: the resignation of Keir Starmer and
We're
the
talking about
apparent.
it late. Why?
Yeah, well, because it's, I think it was good to wait to see how everything played out. Because when you listen to it's been an ongoing show, it's been a running show, because there are two parts to this. It's not just that Keir Starmer has resigned, but it's the apparent coronation of Andy Burnham. And I think it was good for us to step back rather than just jump in at the very start when uh everyone was talking about it, and then just see where it leads. That's one. But then the other thing is, on the day that Keir Starmer resigned, was the day we recorded interview with Bayo Alaba MP.
Yep.
Who's a Nigerian heritage member of parliament in the Labour Party, and I don't know if you caught this, Cheta, who was unrestrained in condemning the immigration reform that this Labour government is undertaking. And I couldn't help but wonder, yes, but I couldn't help but wonder if we had had that interview 2 weeks ago, whether he would have been as unrestrained as that, not because he's not his thoughts, but whether there would have been that fear of the almighty whip uh, dangling over his head and saying, you better watch what you say, otherwise the whip will be withdrawn from you. I don't know what you thought, Cheta.
Um, I genuinely think that he would have been a bit more restrained um, if the interview had happened a week earlier. Um, Whatever you say, Keir Starmer was authoritarian in his use of the whip, and I don't see Bayo as someone who would be willing to go independent, who would be willing to be cast aside, especially considering the dynamics of his constituency. So
Yeah.
um, so that's he would have been if the interview had happened a week earlier, he would have been more cautious.
Mm. But again, isn't it, and maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves now, but isn't it just quite interesting how everyone suddenly seems uh, totally able to just get things off their chest? And and this was even before the resignation of Keir Starmer, where he seemed
When it became clear that he
people
was
just
going,
yeah, and suddenly people were like, you know what, I'm just going to say it as it is. And even now, you see the back and forth between, or we witnessed last week, the back and forth between Shabana Mahmood and Mike Tapp. Shabana Mahmood is the Home Secretary. Mike Tapp is a minister. I think he's immigration minister. And you saw there was an open revolt, as it were, of a minister against his Secretary of State. She wanted him to be sacked. The Prime Minister said no. Mike Tabb goes on Twitter and uh, effectively compares Shabana
bashes
Mahmood.
Mahmoud,
Bashes her and then somehow compares her to the Taliban and then deletes the tweet. But it's just
but
there's
everybody has got
chaos.
his screenshots.
But
I don't know why
anyway,
I don't know why
let's
people
start
delete
from the
tweets.
Look, immediately and see, Twitter is amazing. It's interesting because it seems that there are people whose job it is to capture or screenshot your tweet and keep it, no matter how insignificant you think you are. It makes me wonder which of my tweets will surface 10 years from now, because there's always that saying, there's always a tweet. But
I mean,
anyway,
there's
let's.
that tweet that will surface. It's not it's a no-brainer. There was a
Mm,
time. This was what? This is 2016. So this 2026. So this was 9 years ago. Um,
mm,
I met someone or someone came to visit. This was for those who may not know, myself and Hunzukwe, before we left Nigeria, were sort of neighbors. We lived close to each other. So in the estate in which I still live, as it were, my current
mm,
abode in Lagos is still in that estate. But because my family is in the UK, I've moved to a much smaller place. Someone came to visit. And my wife had made dinner, and over a meal somebody tweeted something. Somebody affiliated with the APC government tweeted something. And
mm.
this guy, as soon as the tweet came, the first thing this guy did was to tweet a screenshot, send it to himself via email. And this was in my
Mhm.
presence. Send it to himself via email. And then open his laptop, download it. He had a folder where he was saving such things. I will never
Interesting.
forget that thing. As in, it was like, oh wow. As soon as he saw it on his phone, first thing, screenshots, email to himself, open laptop, download in that safe folder. Like people take this social media thing very, very seriously. But onto
True.
the onto
Eh,
onto onto the topic of the day.
Yeah. So on 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 Monday, the 22nd of June, 2026, uh, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer resigned as the leader of the Labour Party and effectively as a Prime Minister, setting out a a timeline uh, for an installment or for a new prime minister, a new leader, first of all, to to come on board and then become the prime minister, and that's very important because the UK runs a parliamentary democracy, and what that means is a leader is or a party is voted into power, and whoever the leader of that party or the party with the largest majority in parliament is becomes uh numero uno, first amongst equals, and then effectively becomes the prime minister. So um when he did that, when he set out that when he read that speech, effectively what he was saying is the Labour Party, which has the largest, which has a majority in Parliament, will have to get a new leader, and as I said, whoever that leader is then is now the effective prime minister. Now the nominations will open. The party has there's a timeline of what will happen and when. Nominations for those who may wish to stand for leadership will open on the 9th of July and close on the 16th of July, which is when the parliament will go on recess. Um, during which time there's supposed to be a debate amongst people who put their names forward. Now, to put your name forward to be an MP, you need at least 81 people
To be
behind
leader
you.
to be leader
81
of the Labour
to be the
Party.
leader, to be leader of to be the leader of the Labour Party, you need at least 81 of your colleagues, of your members of parliament colleagues, to be behind you. Now, if there's a contest in place before Parliament returns on September 1, that would be. But if there's no contest as it is looking likely to be, then Andy Burnham, who is the only person so far who has declared an interest, will become leader on 17 July, just a day after the nominations close. But until that happens, Keir Starmer remains the prime minister. And this is a drama we have
And
found
a lame
ourselves
duck.
in. And a lame duck, sadly, as it is. I mean, I was listening to a podcast, I don't remember which, where they were saying he had wanted to meet with the heads of the armed forces who sat under the armed forces, the Secretary of Defense who had resigned, and almost no one wanted to meet with him. And that is such a sad place to be. But you know what? Before we again jump all over the place, Cheta, in your analysis, was this inevitable and what led to it?
So it wasn't exactly inevitable at the start of the year, and it was not inevitable when, even from my point of view, it wasn't inevitable even when Labour Party was trashed at the council elections.
Hmm.
There were a number of missteps by Starmer, where that basically boxed him into a corner, and it was cumulative. So things have been happening. So it was kind of like it was drip drip. I think um,
Hmm.
it's difficult to feel much sympathy for him, to be honest, because despite the landslide in 2024, what we can see is a case study in wasted political capital. That's what it is. So the fact that he had this authoritarian streak, basically, whenever he not agree with people, whenever people disagreed with him, the whip will be brought down or they'll be kicked out of the party. He was very, very quick to reach for the stick. Um, and then the fact that he's not charismatic at all made it easy for people to begin to hate him. Um, I think that for many, the straw that broke camel's back was Peter Mandelson.
Hmm.
When that's happened, so it started with, so first things first, within the Labour Party, within the broad Labour Party, he lost the Corbynites completely, and with the Corbynites, the left of the party. Anybody who was in the left of the party that remains in the party um, after Starmer, after Corbyn, was looking at Starmer with side eye. Not necessarily to sabotage him, but there was the side eye look like this guy. So instead, rather than reaching out across the aisle of the party's internal aisle to bring everybody together, he still maintains that very authoritarian streak, almost a kind of my way or the highway. Another
Hmm.
significant
Well, sorry,
thing.
he did say it because he was fond of saying, "I've changed the party, and if you don't like it, the door is open."
Okay, now I know. So the door has now been opened for him now. Anyway, aside from that, there was so some of the U-turns. The
Hmm.
U-turns turned a lot of the public against him, and because of that, members of the party began to look at their seats and say, "Oh, oh, again." charisma. Again, because he was not charismatic, Keir Starmer basically had the charisma of chalk. And because of that, the media campaign, because it's important to point out that there was a media campaign against, and anybody who is not to the right will get the same. So Andy Burnham is going to get
mm,
it. Is going to get, because the media in the UK is right wing. Um,
mm.
so he's going to
Largely
get
right
it,
wing.
but because of Andy Burnham is in a better position to ride out that storm because he has charisma. He knows how to
Mm,
play some of these things like a fiddle, which is something that Starmer lacked completely. Um, and then as time went on, he's another thing that lost a lot of people, that lost Starmer a lot of people, was the fact that he kept trying to out Farage. Kept, as in, some things are just blindingly obvious. There's no
mm,
way heaven, earth, hell, Valhalla, Enuigwe, there's no way that people the people to the right of Kemi Badenoch were ever going to come to Starmer's side of the ledger. And you can look at it, for
mm,
example, in the fact that more than any prime minister in the last 14 years, he has brought down immigration. He has done
mm,
it very harshly, as in very anti-labor in the manner he has approached it and achieved it. Yet,
mm,
it hasn't changed a thing. That should be a big lesson to Andy Burnham that these guys, it does not matter what you do, how you try to appease, as long as you are
mm.
not on their side of the ledger, they will not look at you. It does not
So,
matter. And if Andy Bonham is silly enough, I still think so. There's something that I kept saying that the that Farage would become prime minister if Starmer loses his nerve and quits.
mm,
I would modify that a little now. Um, and that is because of the fact that that 5 million that Farage took is really biting him in the butt big time.
in,
As in,
in fact, I don't know if you've seen this now, there's another allegation that he spent 1.8 million euros of the EU money, to run the Brexit campaign.
no,
So he
I
has,
haven't seen
yeah.
that.
So there's another allegation of financial impropriety hanging over his neck
I
again.
mean, I would see that. I would likely see that when did that come out? Today?
This was, I think, yesterday and today. Yeah.
Okay, then I missed it because what I try to do now is so there's a lot of intense work that I'm doing right now. So what I
Mm,
try to do is keep up with the new UK news, and then you have the little pleasure of the World Cup. So
mm,
it's the World Cup, Nigeria news, West Africa news and
mm,
a lot of interesting stuff is happening in West Africa right now. So it's eating into my time. So I've reduced my UK news consumption to about 1 hour a day. So it's kind of easy for me to miss a few things here and there. Um, but having said that, the point is, I saw Farage's interview on the BBC when he finally crept out of his hole.
mm.
It's not Victoria Derbyshire. I've forgotten her name. The lady who was sitting in for Laura Koonsberg. She gave him a hard time.
Yeah, yeah, that's Vicky. That's Victoria Derbyshire, isn't it? Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Anyway, no, it's not Victoria Derbyshire. And I know I'm looking at the woman's face, at the lady's face right now, and it's not
Oh, okay.
Victoria Derbyshire.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
but
oh, 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 oh. I know. Yes, yes.
yeah. Anyway, she gave Farage a hard time, which for me was significant because Farage, for a very long time, the BBC has had a habit of letting Farage lie down and then they tickle his tummy. So but I think the most significant one was Nick Ferrari. Nick
Mm,
Ferrari interviewed Farage and gave him a modestly hard time. Not as hard as he got on the BBC,
yeah.
but nevertheless, the fact that Nick Ferrari, who used to tickle Farage's tummy and tickle his toes to add, actually brought out
Oh,
a pin.
oh. If you want and again, I don't know. I'm sure you didn't see it. Laura Kingsberg yesterday. Piers Morgan more or less went on a tirade.
I've
Saying
seen,
that he.
yeah,
Mm,
I've seen the I've seen a
Clips of
preview of
that.
that,
Yeah.
but it's no,
Mhm.
I haven't seen the clips. It's actually on my playlist
Okay.
for so yeah, I'm going to watch it in between in just before the Netherlands Morocco game.
Mm.
Yes, I know you don't understand what's happening. See,
Yeah.
there's this thing called the World Cup. As
Is
we're
is not is
recording, yeah, as we're recording, Brazil and Japan are drawing 1-1.
That's
When the game
interesting, man.
finishes,
Japan has been quite
you don't
interesting
follow
in their
football.
play.
That's why you don't follow
No, no,
football.
it's not
As
that.
you would,
No, but
it would not
I was
surprise you.
watching it. I was watching a few highlights, and it was just how mathematical Japan was in their play that
And I'm
was
saying it would,
quite
if you followed football,
interesting.
it would not surprise you. Anyway, after
Well,
Brazil and Japan, there will be a break. Then there will be Germany versus Paraguay. I expect Germany to
yeah.
win that. And then there will
Well.
be a break. There will be a break before Netherlands and Morocco. So it is
Mm.
in between that Germany, Paraguay, Netherlands, Morocco that I would sit down to watch my UK picks.
But see what you mentioned, especially the tackling or trying to chase reform was it wasn't just unfortunate.
Was one of his
It was a very
undoings.
silly, yeah, it was a very silly strategy because just 5% of those who voted Labour in 2024 switched to reform. 32% switched to Greens and or Lib Dem. So when you consider the fact that a huge chunk of these people went to the left, or at least to the center ground, as it were, with the Lib Dems. Yet, Keir Starmer was chasing just 5%. It did not make any sense, no sense whatsoever. Especially when
It makes sense actually.
week after week they were attacking the Greens, and I just thought this is incredible because you're shedding votes to your left. However, you're chasing just a tiny minority to
No,
your
it makes
right.
sense actually. It makes sense actually. For someone who is not politically astute,
Mm,
and remember that I had said this before in a past episode that he spent a lot of his time looking at things like polling and the media.
mm,
So we both agree that the media in the UK is overwhelmingly right wing.
yeah.
If that is your diet, you would think that the place that Starmer is losing or was losing their voters to was to reform. And that was his
Mm,
problem.
mm,
So, and I think ultimately the thing that really did him in is something that did not do him in directly, but did him in indirectly, which is the cost of living crisis. I
mm.
maintain that the real issue for everybody, or the vast majority of people in the UK, is cost of living. When you have that cost of living crisis, it appeared like he was completely out of ideas. His position
Mm.
had become untenable.
And I think so. And the thing is, I agree with that. However, I think it wasn't so much the cost of living crisis because that could be explained away, but his reaction to the cost of living crisis. So things like the removal of the winter fuel allowance, which was then rolled back on, things like the welfare reform, which wasn't well explained. They were rather than being um, put forward to the public as either as political choices or as choices, tough choices that had to be made, but with um we give and take, as it were. So we give some, we take some. They were mostly presented as a pounds and pennies option. We don't have money in the treasury, therefore we are going to cut winter fuel allowance to the pensioners. We don't have money in the treasury, therefore we're going to cut the welfare state. However, if they were presented as we are giving money to people who do not deserve it because they already have the triple lock in their pension. Therefore, we should means test so that only the people who really need help get this winter fuel allowance. And we're not going to start this year, but we'll start next year. Then people will have the conversation and say, yes, you know what? I actually don't need this thing. Or if you say, look, there are a lot of people who, for some weird reason, are no longer willing to go into work, and as depending on welfare, which is unfair to those who really need welfare. So we're going to means test welfare to make sure that only the most deserving get support from the state, then people can start having conversation. But when you go to people and you say, look, oh, there's a black hole. We don't have money inside this thing. So to fill it up, we're going to take money from you, and you. You give your opponents a, a ram with which to batter you with endlessly. And then you turn around and you do that U-turn. But then in doing the U-turn, you don't even acknowledge that you made a U-turn because of pressure. You make it sound like this is what we wanted to do all along. So hail us for lifting X number of children out of poverty. People are going to look at you and go like,
And then do it in a very uncharismatic way.
and there's that. But I don't know if you've also noticed, Cheta, which is quite interesting. I think the media saw Keir Starmer and this Labour government as a yarn, and they were cats. So they were just playing, playing the prime minister and the party between their paws. And when he he resigned, it was almost like, and it's been interesting listening to a lot of podcasts. It's almost like the media was like, "Oh my goodness, what have we done? Why did he resign?
I,
Why
I
was why
well,
did you people let him go?"
I can't speak to that simply because
Mm,
I haven't been following as closely because
mm,
of where I am. And at the moment in Nigeria, there's the current government is doing some very, very interesting things with the courts. But that's by the by. Um, but the bottom line is, I don't think that the media played him like like a cat with a yarn of ball with a ball
mm,
of yarn. Because that's very playful. If I would make any this, I would say that the media played him like a cat with a rat.
mm.
It was visceral. And I think that the media, considering the ownership of the majority of the media, will be even more visceral with Andy
With Andy
Burnham.
Burnham.
Um, Now there are things that Andy Burnham has already there are steps that he has already taken that I think would not win him too many friends. For example, some of the appointments that people have said, I don't know if any of them is confirmed. And then one of the ways that he can win some friends now is to sacrifice the Israelis in a manner of speaking. The way the Americans are sacrificing the Israelis. Israel doesn't have
Mm,
so many friends. So this is not about my position on the whole on Gaza or Iran or anything.
mm,
This is now pure real politics. The Israelis don't have too many friends at the moment. I saw a survey 2 days ago that said very clearly that Israel is the most unpopular country in the world right now.
mm,
So Israel was rated as minus 24 in terms of unpopularity. Oh, Nigeria was rated as minus 7. So
what?
we're
That's
yeah,
interesting.
we're probably outside of Somalia, we're the most unpopular African country at the moment. So,
Mm,
but Kenya was rated at plus 7. But let's move away from that briefly. Bottom line
mm,
is there isn't too much. He can't go too much wrong if he sacrifices the Israelis, not necessarily in a brutal way, but in a sort of like, come and make certain statements, even if he doesn't mean them. Make certain statements that will bring a lot of people on the left of the party back into the fold.
mm.
You
Y-
understand?
y-
Basically,
Yeah.
start to rebuild the big tents.
He,
Secondly,
he could play. Okay, so Karen.
secondly, he should also do something that Starmer spectacularly failed to do:
Mm,
increase some of the taxes on the rich.
mm,
Because the thing that pushed so many people against Starmer is, as you pointed out, with like things like the winter fuel allowance, you are saying there's no money, but British BP, sorry, is making record profits. Raise taxes on them. You understand? Just
mm,
some kind of see some some populist moves to buy him time. But one
mm,
thing he should not fall for, although we've seen the Makerfield campaign and we realize that, oh, Andy Burnham is actually a very good campaigner. But one thing I think he should not fall for is ego. John
mm,
Major is the last prime minister that did not fall for that kind of ego. Don't come in the middle of a term and then say, oh, you must get your own mandate. I must get my mandate. I must get my mandate. See, John Major is a good example. Just get in and get on with it.
mm.
Those are supposed to be traditional British values. Get in
Yeah.
and get on with it. Forget all of that nonsense of, oh, everybody must see that you have a mandate from people. People. The people gave a mandate to your party. Abi, exhaust
Yep.
that
And
mandate.
yeah. And and I well, just to come back on what you said on Israel, I think perhaps he should play a Mamdani, the mayor of New York, who when
Exactly.
he was asked, you become mayor, where do you go to first? And he said, look, I'll go to the five boroughs of New York because those are the people I represent. And if I know that, Burnham has started leaning into it with his announcement of the number 10 in the north to try and bring, devolving more powers to the regions and all that, to bring more development to the north and East Midlands and all that, and northwest. And you know if he can lean more into, look, I'm here. And again, that goes to his campaign um slogan, for us. I'm here for us, and the for us means it's you people here in the forgotten places. It's not the Israeli government, it's not the Palestinian government, it's not the American government, it's for us, and he can start leaning into, and I agree, a little bit of populism, which he's doing now, because um it takes me back to my advertising days when I first saw Get on the Nescafe side of life as a campaign, and then many years later saw Get on the Coke side of life. And because Coke has poured so much money into the advertising, people forgot that Nescafe used that line a few years before. And what Andy Burnham is doing now is doing something similar in talking about hope. And people are now forgetting that, hang on, wasn't this Zach Polanski and the Greens campaign? Talking about making politics
Yeah, but
make hope normal again.
politicians steal from one another all
But
the time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
So
nothing
so
new.
it's quite interesting that it's working for him, and no one has pulled him up on that. And now he's owning hope as a Labour politician. And what you see is that people are gradually saying to themselves, perhaps it's time to come back to the Labour Party. Even in Derby here, there's some guy who famously left the local Labour Party, who has and went to the Greens, and since Andy Burnham has come back, because now he's talking in terms that people can relate with, and rather than what Starmer did when he came in and said, "Look, things are bad and things are going to get really bad." No, people want hope. They've been under 14 years of austerity. The last thing they want is for someone to come and tell them,
Make it
look,
16.
man. Well, yeah, and then the last thing you mentioned, Cheta, is I agree. People need to remember that this is a parliamentary, or he doesn't need to remember that this is a parliamentary democracy, and the party, not the person, has a mandate. And this is where the press has started again, because if you in the past few days, the press keep going. The first of all started from, oh man, he should call the general election. He doesn't have a mandate. Some people reminded them, this is a parliamentary democracy. It's not America. And then their next tactics was, well, he's going to find out that he's very popular, and maybe in about a year or 2 years, he's going to call the general election for his own mandate. You know, crap. He's there till 2029. Let Farage fight his 5 million. Let Kemi fight her Mean Girls Tribute Act. Let
I
Burnham
want to make
carry
an
on.
appeal to Farage. I want to make it direct. So let's end this half by me making a direct appeal to Farage. Come and give me some of that 5 million. I'll campaign for you. I'll bring all the black people to your side. Hmm?
Uh, all right. On that note, Farage, you've heard Cheta. Let's go for a break. Perhaps you can reach out to him during the break. Welcome back to the Black Paper. My name is Ndukwe Onoha.
And I'm Sheta Wanze.
Cheta has been did Farage call you during the break, Cheta?
No, I stopped to look at what was happening between Brazil and Japan. Still 1-1.
Anyway, so Cheta, we've been talking about the imminent, as it seems, coronation of Andy Burnham as the next British Prime Minister. Um, and most times when I've seen a lot of a few people in our community talk about these. What keeps even yesterday, someone said to me, "Oh my goodness, this is so much instability. Can you imagine 7 prime ministers in 10 years? What is going on?" And I keep saying to
Britain has
myself,
become Italy.
Britain has become Italy.
I
But
saw a tweet.
when I
I
have,
saw a tweet somewhere.
yeah.
Um, it was very funny. So somebody was saying, "Oh, we have we have how the person put it? Um, we are getting our seventh prime minister in 10 years. It's
Mm.
30 degrees centigrade outside. People had a heat wave last week. It's 30 degrees outside, and we are playing
Mm.
well in a World Cup. Oh God, we have become Italy." And then somebody replied, "Oh, have you guys learned to cook?" That entered.
Touche.
That was
That
good.
entered.
Touche.
That entered. Anyway, so what I was trying to say, Jetta, is that when people in our community go on about, look at the destabilization and all that, I wonder sometimes if they're asking the right question and they're not saying to themselves, the man who made that Island of Strangers speech, even though he apologized for it later, has left. The leadership that tacked so much to the right and gave us hit after hit from Shabana Mahmood, is crumbling. Should our focus, therefore, not be moved from, oh, look, is another prime minister, to wondering, as his campaign said in Makerfield, is Andy Burnham for us? Shouldn't that be what we should be asking ourselves rather than wondering how many prime ministers have come and gone in 10 years?
Well, he seems to be. I mean, from the little I've read, the little I've watched, there seems to be a sort of cautious optimism. There's definitely a
Mm,
sense of definitely a sense of relief. Um, so the question is, will he remain the king in the north, or will he become the king of all? Um,
mm,
I think that's something that is going to actually stand in his favor, especially if he makes moves to do it. Is his rhetoric of redistributing power away from Westminster. If he
mm,
moves power to, if he moves some powerful things, because one thing that we've learned from somewhere like Nigeria, and it's something that is a lesson that the UK forces learn. It's something that the Americans do very well: distributed power. When you distribute power centers, economic activity follows the government.
mm,
So one of the ways that an anti-Bonham government can actually begin to kickstart various parts of the UK is by removing power from London. London is too much of a prime city. Now, in political terms, a prime city is a city where as in where it carries an outsized weight, as it were, within its constituency, within its country. So, for example, London in the UK being one of the being the being a very very good example. Paris and France, a lot of France rotates around Paris. Um, um, Germany has distributed power. So or distributed economy. So you have Frankfurt, you have Berlin, you have Bonn, you have Munich. You understand that kind of stuff. Germany has
mm,
probably six. Um, Italy has Rome, Milan. The US has a lot. One thing that anybody can really envy the US about is the fact that things are really distributed in that country. Nigeria has Lagos and Abuja, and that's it.
mm.
So the UK to a large extent has just London. London is what? If you take away London from the UK in terms of the economics, the UK becomes almost a third world country in GDP terms. That needs to
In fact,
change.
there's even a London within the London.
You know, that
There's
kind of
this,
stuff.
there's the city of London, and then there's London.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, if you look at the conversation around migration, which is where uh, Keir Starmer had his greatest hit, because let's as you mentioned earlier, migration fell, and the press and the right wing they didn't want to address it.
Ignored
However,
it.
they ignored it. However, from going down to about 87 or thereabout percent in terms of net migration was a feat. But if we as our audience will know, we started this podcast based as a direct response to Shabana Mahmood's white paper on immigration. Um, if you look at those who have been Andy Burnham's biggest supporters, so you look at people like um, Angela Rayner, who came out, batting streets from the top, saying this immigration reform is anti-British. It's not who we are. You look at Bayo Alaba, who we had on the podcast last week. I know a few MPs who, excuse me, in closed door conversations have made their opposition to the white paper known. You have the House of Lords, which came out with a report last week saying this retroactive application of the ILR uh, rule should not go ahead. So you have all this, but then you have an Andy Burnham who, on one hand, is more left-leaning than Keir Starmer and maybe people like West Streeting and Shabana Mahmood, but on the other hand, is elected as an MP in Makerfield, which is what 97% white, which voted Brexit. And even though he increased the size of his majority in the last election, will be looking at will be eyeing his re-election, and he's probably wondering how much should I water down, as has been rumored, these Shabana Mahmood's immigration rules,
He
how
will
much would be
water it down.
acceptable?
He
So you
will.
think he water it down, and why would
Yes,
he?
because it's already clear. For example, the universities are complaining badly.
Mm,
It's it's clear already that the UK economy is already taking its
mm,
because of the unfavorable new rules for migrants. Um, the fact. Let's start with the fact that you can that people coming nowadays can no longer
mm,
come. For example, people for the care sector, people for students for universities can no longer come with their families. It has made the UK less attractive for people who are coming. The care sector is complaining. The education sector is complaining. These are two big contributors to the UK economy. So
mm,
there will be a watering down. I think the only question is to what extent he would go. In terms
mm,
of Makerfield, I think the fact, yes, Makerfield voted Brexit. I think watching the way the campaign went, and I took time out on the day of the actual election to actually follow some of what was happening. Watching the
mm,
way it went, I think that many people within the Makerfield area are having regrets, to use that expression, but
mm,
they don't want to say it openly. However, they have said it with their votes because it's significant in my view that Andy Burnham, despite running as a a left or center candidate in a very right wing area, actually won more votes than the three right wing parties combined. He
mm,
won more votes than Reform, Restore, and Doris combined. That says a lot.
mm,
That says an entire lot. So what that does is it gives him a lot of latitude to do because he has hit on what is really doing the people. What's really doing the
mm.
people is cost of living.
Yeah.
And I'll keep coming back to
And
that.
I think what he has done in moving number 10's operation, or some part of number 10 operations to Manchester, is that he has given people that, oh, look, finally someone sees us. And in doing that, there's that sense of pride. Oh, this could only have happened because one of our own has become prime minister. And that allows him some time, some wiggle room to say, look, what you need is opportunities, not fighting the migrant community. And also, it's quite interesting. One name that has really, in fact, that as people as it is said, has a spreadsheet where if you want your ideas to be part of the Bonham's premiership, that's who you should meet, and where the spreadsheet where your ideas should feature is Miata Fanbule, the MP for Peckham, elected in 2024. Now, interestingly, and if I'm getting this correct, Fanbule was she's a Liberian-born woman who
Is it Liberia
arrived.
or Sierra Leone?
Uh, um, I think it's Liberian.
Well, I
I have
mean,
to check.
Liberia and
Yeah.
Sierra Leone are now the same papa born two of them.
And but who arrived seeking asylum, and is now not just a member of parliament for Peckham, but is the one person who seems to be coordinating Andy Burnham's policy operation. I think that in itself is a story that the migrant community contributes quite a lot, not just to the wider society, but is actually contributing to the success of this government. And it is an argument that can be made to say what we need is ideas. And if it comes from the migrant community, look at this lady who has been able to turn around this government, who has been able to turn around the party and brought these policies forward, then that is as strong as any an argument for the inclusion of migrant voices in our communities. I don't know if you have any comeback on that.
No, I don't really. I think the only thing that I have to add at this point really is that we should not forget the transatlantic relationship.
Mm,
Whether we like it or not, the UK's most important partner is still the United States.
mm,
And one of the things that Keir Starmer did reasonably, in short, probably the only thing that he did reasonably well was keeping a lead on Trump. And
mm,
I think that's because of one person, the current National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell. Um, and it would make some sense for Anne Bonham to keep him around
yeah.
because the last thing he's already on the negative side of the Trump book
Mm,
because he's from the left and he's more to the left than Keir Starmer. So
mm,
keeping somebody without scandal, because one of the reasons that they brought Peter Mandelson on was to keep Trump sweet, and he
mm,
came with a lot of baggage. Jonathan Powell doesn't have too much scandal. I mean, like so many people in the West nowadays, he's on his second marriage, but his second marriage has been remarkably stable.
mm,
Um, so he's a safe pair of hands to maintain that relationship. This is
mm.
about naked geopolitics now.
Of
Um,
course.
the UK needs to keep America sweet. Um, Many British people would not like to hear this, but it's just the truth. The UK has been America's beach for a very long time, so it just has to to keep the Americans happy for now.
And coming back to our community, I think again, I'm sure people will be tired of me saying this, but we do need to get. This is not the time to throw our hands in the air and say, "Oh, what will be, what will be, will be." No, what will be won't be. We will make what is, and that
We
is,
have to make what is. That's something
yeah.
that we don't do very well.
That's something that we don't do. And the Bonham, we can see that in shifting part of number 10 operation to the north, what he has done is to say to people, look, I've heard your agitations, I've heard your cries for so many for so many years, and this is my peace offering to you. What is a peace offering to our community? And I would say I remember having a conversation with a pastor once, and he said, look, I don't know why people keep thinking that politics is moral. No one is going to give you anything just because
You
uh,
think,
yeah, so that is something we
and I will
need to
quote
start
I will
doing.
quote one of my favorite Machiavellian politicians.
Mm.
One of my favorite Machiavellian politicians is a guy called Bola Tinubu,
I knew
and
you were going there.
he once said, politics is not
Served
a
a la
la
carte.
carte. Yeah,
Aha.
it's a buffet.
Mm.
So our people in that part of the world need to come to the buffet. But
Yeah.
you can't come to the buffet without an IV. And the IV is to get yourselves ready, organized, and make people want, like, have something that people actually want.
Yeah. So, and Burnham is going to be the next prime minister. But the question is, if we want to make sure that he's a prime minister that sees and recognizes our community, then we must, as a matter of urgency, start getting involved instead of sitting down and asking, well, what's he going to do for me? Question is, what are you going to do for yourself by being a lot more involved, by being a lot more vocal, and also by just realizing that as again, and I don't know why I've reversed to Igbo how many times in this podcast, but in Igbo we call politics ndorondoro chichi is a drag. No one is going to just say, that guy is nice or that community is good. No, you have to also drag for your own share. So if you want
Yes.
any recognition by this administration or any other administration, then we must drag. We must register to vote. We must vote. We must write to our MPs. We must make our voices heard.
We must harass
Otherwise,
our MPs.
we must harass our MPs. Otherwise, and in a good way. Otherwise, we will sit down here asking about the next prime minister because there will be another prime minister, whether it's in 2029 or whenever. And all we'll be asking is, what are they going to do for us? And they will look at you and ask, who are you?
what, what do you have to bring to the table?
Bam. Anyway, Cheta, this has been an interesting conversation, and enjoy the heat and the rain in Nigeria, but more importantly, the properly seasoned food and the
Should I stand
just
up and
enjoy.
show you my belly? One
Cheta,
thing I like. One thing I like about being in Nigeria. So because we eat so well,
mm,
and unlike the Italians who get to walk around a lot, the
mm,
humidity here doesn't allow it. So we tend to become rather portly.
mm.
So whenever I'm in the UK, I become very conscious about the size of my midriff. Because there are a lot of men walking around very fit. When I'm in Nigeria, I slot right in because
Because I
because
mean, if you have a small midriff,
I have
you're a small boy.
mm, let's put it like this. I have a 1 month pregnancy. There are people walking around that are 7 months pregnant, men. I'm
No,
saying,
Cheta, I'm sure I haven't seen as long as it's definitely 3 months by now. It cannot be one.
uh, no,
It
no, no,
cannot be.
no. I've tried to be disciplined for health reasons. So,
All right. All right. No worries, man. Enjoy
all
yourself,
right.
Cheta, and I'll see you at the next one.
See you at the next one.